In today's Poland Daily Culture, we're going to show you one of the lesser spoken about but very visible aspects of Polish life in the 20th century, the neon sign. The Neon Museum in Warsaw is dedicated to the documentation and the preservation of Cold War-era neon signs and electrographic design. Since 2005, they have been engaged in the enormous task of documenting and preserving the last surviving remnants of the Great Neonization campaign across the former Eastern Bloc. Their ongoing efforts have been credited with ushering in a new neon renaissance throughout Poland, a movement that began with the opening of the first and only museum of its kind in Europe. The permanent collection contains hundreds of dazzling neon signs and other electrographic artifacts, many of which were designed by the great artists of the age, who were responsible for the world-famous Polish poster school. The museum illustrates the unique characteristics of a known art form which was born from revolution, served as state propaganda, and flourished during Poland's post-war period.
We're here at the Neon Museum in Warsaw, and I'm joined by the owner, Mr. Witold Urbanowicz. Welcome to Poland Daily Culture, sir.
Good morning.
First of all, I'd like to ask you about how the museum started. How did it first come about?
We carried this project, documentation project, for 15 years. At the beginning, it was supposed to be a short photographic project. Ilona Karwińska, a photographer that lives in London, came with graphic designer David Hill for a visit to Poland. David was for the first time in Poland then, and he just noticed those old neons, and he said to Ilona that she should photograph them. He knew all the typefaces, but he didn't know those typefaces of the old neons because they were individually planned. So it was supposed to be a short project, but then when we started, the neons, we've realized that the neons disappear very quickly.
In what sense do you mean they disappeared?
Well, for example, our first neon collection is Berlin. It was on our list of the neons that we should photograph. When Ilona came with the camera, the neon was gone. The owners said that was old. The pigeons made a mess, and they took it down. So at the beginning, when it was only a documentary project, we started to collect the neons.
When was this? Which year?
That was 2005. Then, as the project progressed, we've gained more and more neons. And our exhibitions were popular, so at one stage we thought that it would be nice to have a museum. In 2012 we've opened here in Prague a permanent exhibition.
So how did it look beforehand then? You were just going from place to place, just having kind of short exhibitions in places?
Yes, so we had the exhibition in London, Amsterdam, Wrocław. And there was a really positive feedback all the time, and those neons are quite big. They have glass tubes, so it's also difficult to transport them, and they are very fragile. So that's why at some point, when we had a lot of neons, we thought it would be nice to have this permanent place, so those neons would be in one place, and that's what you can see here.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did your personal interest in neons first develop?
Actually, I was changing the trams in front of the Berlin sign during my school times, and it always caught my eye because it was flashing and it was kind of outdated, representing the design that is not present now. So I always looked at that neon, and those neons always stayed in my mind. So when Ilona came to Poland, she's a member of my family. I was really happy to get on board this project and helped Ilona organize those photographic tour of those existing neons.
How is the sort of Polish neons? How do they differ from kind of European neighbours? So, for example, if you took the exhibition to Britain, for example, was it something quite strange or different for them to see?
That's a very good question, because those neons that we have here are from the post-war period, when in Poland we had centrally planned economy. The neons were designed by graphic designers and architects for certain locations, and it took up to 3 years for a specific neon to get approved. So it was a very planned way of advertising, and actually those neons weren't supposed to advertise, they were supposed to adorn the city. So, for example, big flowers of height of 3 floors could be hanging over a flower shop, or a big mermaid over a public library. So the only limitation was the imagination of the creators, which had all the skills necessary to create interesting advertisements. It's something completely different than we can see now, when everyone can design advertising, and we can see that sometimes the city is covered in chaos.
Absolutely. Warsaw being a good example of it. Well, so what significance did the lights have then in that time? Was it that if they weren't originally planned for commercial activity, why did they specifically choose neons?
Well, the neons reappeared after the war in late 1950s, after the Stalinist period has ended. And the communist authorities wanted to brighten up the cities and create an illusion of a better world, better world than the Western one. So that's why those neons here had this artistic value, really big artistic value. Usually it was a matter of prestige for the cities to have all areas neonized. And it was certainly a centrally planned also process. So, for example, the authorities of a city decided to neonize the whole street, and then every single shop received a neon. And no matter if it needed a neon, then every single place had to have a neon. So that was completely different than how the advertising should be done.
Ah, I see. So it was just a sort of to give a kind of facade of everything is well in the country. And did other sort of socialistic countries do that also, or was that just unique to Poland? Or?
Yeah, other countries also did that. So there are also interesting neon examples from Eastern Germany, Czechoslovakia, or Russia. Of course, not many neons are left, but actually when you look at those neons in different countries, you can see the style of the artists from countries. For example, the typefaces differ, represent the trends in separate countries. So that's also interesting to look at neons from different countries.